So I did just want to start sharing a little bit about my story, why I got into doing what I'm doing, and where I've been, and where I am now. So back in the beginning of 2022, I found myself very, very anxious and depressed. My hair was falling out. I had no appetite, like literally could not eat anything, which is crazy because now I love talking about food and love eating food. But I was chronically fatigued. I had brain fog. I was nauseous all the time. My body was just under so much stress and anxiety. And honestly, I had a panic attack. I remember to the date, January 22nd. I had a panic attack and I could not recover from it. And I've had panic attacks before. I knew them. But this just felt very different, and for whatever reason just could not recover from it. And it got to a point where I was desperate for just answers, help, anything. I felt like there was something seriously wrong with me, inside of me. Something had to be just completely amiss. And I had gone through some difficult things leading up to that time. I lost my dad unexpectedly in November of 2021, or in October, and then in November of 2021, so a month later, I had COVID, and that was a really, really difficult recovery for me. I was sick for a really long time. So I don't know if my body was just storing unresolved trauma due to those two things. Like I said, still have no idea why I found myself in the state that I was in, but I did, and I had no choice but to do something to address it. So I started with going to my primary care doctor, who ran some labs and let me know that everything looked normal. And I felt absolutely anything but normal. So while that might have been the case in my labs that she ran, I just knew that something somewhere was wrong. So my heart felt weird at the time too. I was like, let's check my heart. Maybe there's something wrong with my heart. Had a whole echocardiogram, everything came back fine. It was strong, healthy, no issues there. After that, I decided, well, maybe a holistic practitioner will be able to help me, very natural minded, maybe that's just where I need to go next. And so I saw a holistic practitioner, got even more in-depth labs done, and that showed that I had some deficiencies in some vitamins, like vitamin D, B vitamins, important ones for sure, but also that I was moving in the direction of insulin resistance. And this basically just means blood sugar dysregulation. I heard that and I was like, that I can recognize. So basically what that means is insulin, when we eat things, anything at all, we have hormones in our body that kind of send signals to other organs in our bodies to produce things. And insulin is one of those things that our pancreas produces and releases. And then insulin's job is to take the sugar in our blood, otherwise known as glucose, and shuttle it into our cells and take it to places that it needs to go. And our cells can become full where they no longer receive the insulin. So insulin comes knocking on cells and the cells are like, nope, we're not gonna answer, we're full, you can't come in here. And that's where you see insulin resistance come into play. So this can lead to, the way that it goes is you're you're moving in the direction of insulin resistance. You become insulin resistant. Then if you still don't address that, you enter prediabetes. And then after prediabetes, you're type 2 diabetic. My dad was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes when I was younger. So I grew up seeing what that does to a person and just all the ways that it's honestly mismanaged, and that's just not the direction that I wanted to move in. So I didn't really feel like being deficient in these few vitamins, and then having dysregulated blood sugar was the cause for everything that I was feeling so heavily. But I knew that it was at least a place to start. Little pause in this. Does anybody want to share maybe why they find themselves here tonight? Like what about the 6 foundations of nutrition like piqued interest or curiosity or?
I'll tell.
Yeah.
So my 10-year-old, we found out that she has pre-diabetes, I think like 4 or 5 months ago. And I know nothing about diabetes. Like no one in my family have never dealt with any of this.
Yeah. I'll share too. My just in a lot of like trainings and things that I'm doing, I'm learning that metabolic disease is like one of the number one causes of mental health issues.
Oh, wow.
And so learning how to address foundationally nutrition and metabolic disease I think is really important. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of get some more info from that. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for those of you who did share, so much for sharing. While your story might be different from mine, if you're at this gathering, then you probably have questions or curiosity about nutrition and wellness as a whole. Maybe you haven't been feeling well, you've tried diet after diet in hopes that something somewhere will change or stick, or you'll see results that you're hoping to see, but you don't. Maybe you are feeling hopeless over going to conventional doctors with no real answers. They're not really, addressing the things that maybe you feel like you need to be addressed, or they're not looking at things closer the way that you think that they should be. Maybe you know that something has to change and you don't know where to start or how to tackle it. Maybe you're feeling fine and you're really just wanting to know a little bit more about nutrition as a whole and how to live healthier. Regardless of what brings you here, there's a hard reality that we have to navigate living here in America. We are a country that has simply devalued nutrition on a massive scale and placed profits over people time and time again.
Amen.
And I really feel even like the medical field, like conventional medicine, Western medicine, does the exact same thing. Places profit over people over and over and over again. And it's really easy to see this when we walk down the aisles of our grocery stores, where it's easier to fill your cart with ultra-processed foods for cheaper than it is to shop for Whole Foods or on the perimeter of your grocery stores. And it's honestly infuriating for me personally. I get so upset about it. The American Heart Association actually advocates for a low-fat diet when the heart's number one form of energy is healthy fats. Like, we need fats, and you have the American Heart Association saying, actually, fats are bad for you, and you should limit them. It's just not true. It's not true. Certain types of fats are not good for us, and I'll get into that later, but fat overall, it's not bad. So we've been sold something that isn't true, and it's a really important thing to note because it's led to, at best, a lot of false information in our country surrounding food and nutrition, and at worst, poor education by organizations who have a responsibility to simply educate better for healthier and longer living. So what do? How do we fix it? Or if we're hopeless to fix it on a massive scale, what can we do individually about it in our personal lives? So to begin to turn things around, I believe that we have to start with education. We can't fix what we don't know is a problem, and as we begin to learn, I believe we will begin to desire to live, think, and eat differently, and that's what I hope to encourage us towards tonight. I wanted to go ahead and jump into the content of the 6 foundations of nutrition. This is where it's a lot. So if you have questions or I'm going too fast or whatever it may be, just let me know. These foundational principles of nutrition, that if you adopt them, then you'll start to have a starting point to assess where you're at in your overall health, and then it can give you a solid platform to build from there. We have a nutrient-dense diet first, and I think we can all agree that this sounds pretty important, right? Like, a nutrient-dense diet, we're like, oh yes, tell me more. But when we look at what we're eating in our day-to-day lives, does this reflect as that important? A nutrient diet is a diet made up of whole foods and their least processed state. Think whole fruits and vegetables, fresh meat that you can get from your deli area, dry goods as opposed to canned foods, and foods prepared at home as opposed to just grabbing something through the drive-thru or in a gas station, that type of thing. It's also important to think through macronutrients when you're consuming meals and snacks alike. Does your daily diet have whole foods or processed foods? And just so I can clarify, macronutrients are proteins, carbs, and fats. And it's important to make sure that we have a little bit of all of that when we're eating snacks and when we're eating our meals.
Do you have any recommendations
Yeah.
on best way to identify what that would be for you as a person? Like how many grams of carbs, fats, proteins, like any calculators or things?
Yeah,
like
I do.
that?
Actually, we did do calculations in my training at school. So it's all bio-individual, meaning it varies from person to person. Your weight, age, all of that plays a factor. But if you're really honed in on exact measurements, yeah, there's definitely ways to figure that out.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that will just, the portions will look different for everyone.
Person, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we've heard that, you are what you eat. And I believe that's wholeheartedly true. I mean, just in my story alone, and then in stories I've heard from other people, it's definitely true. It sounds very cliche, but big truth. Next we have digestion. This is the second most important foundation. If digestion is compromised in any way, it's going to affect the way that our food is used by our body, absorbed by our body. Some people experience low stomach acid and they don't know why, but low stomach acid can be, or rather heartburn can be an indicator actually of low stomach acid instead of high stomach acid. So you have doctors who are prescribing people who come in and have heartburn antacids, but really they need more production of stomach acid so that their foods can break down. And the way this happens is, this is a little nerdy, but we're gonna go here. Your digestion starts, first of all, in your brain. So if you're thinking about your meal that you're about to have, it's going to ignite those signals that I talked about earlier, where your pancreas is gonna kind of wake up and be like, oh, okay, we're about to eat. And it's going to produce what it needs to produce. Your gallbladder is going to be like, oh, fat entered your mouth. So it's going to produce what it needs to produce to help break down the fat that's going to be in your stomach. And then your liver is also going to produce bile, and that goes into your stomach. And if you don't have enough stomach acid, when food hits your stomach, it's not going to break down properly. So what is it going to do? It's going to just sit there. You actually have a flap in your stomach that leads to your small intestine. And if your food has not properly broken down, it's not going to get the signal to open. So it's just going to sit. And that sitting causes this nasty, but it's the truth. Like you have heartburn, it's your food working its way back up in a way because it doesn't have enough stomach acid to go anywhere else. So it can't just sit there forever. And that's where you get acid reflux, that's where you get heartburn. Yeah, just an interesting fact about digestion. When we learned about this, I was blown away. So
if you're like if you do have low stomach acid and like you experience heartburn or acid reflux occasionally, is that like something, or is it going to be more consistent with meals that you experience that if you have low stomach acid?
I think, yeah, it makes sense. I don't think, certainly certain types of food can affect us. Like some people are more sensitive to spicy foods. I would say to pay attention to when it's happening and what you're eating, and we would go from there. Yeah, honestly, keeping a journal of what you're eating and then how you feel afterwards, which is what I ask all of my clients to do initially is we do a food mood journal, and you just record what you eat anytime you eat throughout the day. For it's ideal to have 5 days, but 4 to 5 days. And then I go through it and kind of comb through and assess and break it down, and then we talk about it after the fact. But yeah, if you're noticing that you have heartburn occasionally, not consecutively, the food mood journal, or I mean, you don't need to use the one that I have, but just recording what you're eating and paying attention to that can be insightful. Another thing to note about digestion is goes back to just mindfully consuming your food. You would want to make sure that you are thinking about it. Also, that you're chewing your food thoroughly. You want your food to be pretty much broken down before you go ahead to swallow it. Like that also plays into low stomach acid. If you're chewing your food and you're not properly breaking it down in your mouth, that mechanical, your stomach is going to have to work that much harder to like break it down, and it might not do a great job, can lead to gas, bloating, again, acid reflux. So it should be smoothie consistency. It sounds very ick to think about, but it truly does make a difference. I mean, I've tried all the things that there is to try, so try it and see.
I actually did a mindful eating workshop one time, and they were basically saying to take a bite, basically put your fork or your spoon down,
chew a certain amount of time,
then pick it back up to take your next bite, put it down, chew it all up. That way you're at least, because when we keep our fork and spoon in our hand, we're shoveling it in usually. So if you just set it down in between every bite, helps you break it down more.
And we'd all be done eating.
Well,
it would be so annoying.
My family gets onto me all the time because they tell me that I'm the slowest eater ever, and I always am the last one to finish. But it's just because I don't know. I know what I know, and I can't. But I also am one who, and how many of us? Okay, question. How many of us have our food, we're sitting down, and we're like, man, I really want to watch my show right now. And so they go ahead and they turn on the TV, and you're sitting there, you're eating your food, and you're just watching the screen, not at all thinking about what you're eating, how it tastes, the texture, nothing. I'm guilty of doing that for sure. And then I get so frustrated with myself because I'm like, I know better. But it's just education, it's knowing. Next we have blood sugar regulation. There's quite a few things that people tend to do that dysregulate their blood sugar, and honestly they might not even know. The first thing, especially for women, especially blood sugar regulation is super important. If you're menstruating, definitely, because you have hormones that come into play with blood sugar regulation. How many of us, let's be honest, please, have coffee first thing in the morning before they eat anything?
Not every day.
That's the worst thing ever.
Sometimes.
We're supposed to have
you
water
wake up
first,
and you're
right?
just like, oh, I gotta have my coffee. And you have it, and then maybe you're at that, by the time you have your cup, you're like, I'm not even hungry. So then you don't eat breakfast. And then you're going until 12:30, 1 without having eaten anything at all throughout the day. And how are you feeling?
Sluggish.
Nauseous. Hangry.
For
I get
sure.
so
I get
hangry.
hangry,
I get very hangry if I don't have my snacks and stuff. Ask anyone who knows me though at all. I always have a snack with me. Always. So if you're ever in need, I'm your girl. And then we'll be balanced as well. So that's super important to just make sure that you are having a protein or a fat or both before you have your morning coffee. And if you're used to just having your coffee and that's it, try having something like that beforehand and see if you notice a difference for a week.
What do you think about putting like butter in your coffee with like collagen in there
Yeah,
as well? Does that help? Like,
It does help. It
because that's
definitely helps.
that's what I do. I don't do like just straight coffee.
Yeah.
I put like a little square of butter with collagen in there.
Yeah,
So
it is helpful.
yeah,
For sure. But it's like, I always do like I think of it as like good, better,
Sure,
best.
yeah.
Like nothing is bad.
Right.
It's just,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
there's
Mhm.
something that's always better and
Better.
best, you know? So
Sure.
it's good, for
Yeah.
sure, it's good.
Love that.
But you know, maybe try a little bit more.
yeah, for sure. I agree.
Just to see if you notice a difference. Like do your own
Yeah.
little experiment.
Yeah.
You can let me know how it goes for you if you want. I'd love
Yeah.
to know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start
But-
tomorrow,
Okay.
so I'll let you know.
Yeah, I'll check in. I will.
Yeah.
I'll be accountable.
Good.
And then another one is snacking. I mean, we have carbs are the most readily available snack that we have. Like, it's awful, but it's just the reality of it.
Mhm.
There are other snacks available. Personally, I love beef sticks, cheese sticks, Go Macro bars. Those are really good. There's really good plant-based protein bars as well that I like. And there's options. They're just not going to be the number one that you think of if you're not used to seeking them out traditionally. And I wanted to talk a little bit also about cortisol and how that gets released when our blood sugar drops. That's what's going to cause you to feel hangry. That's what's going to cause mood swings. It's what's going to cause the negative feelings that come with hunger. It's your cortisol levels are rising when your blood sugar drops. And while cortisol is not bad, we actually need it to survive. It's what, charges our fight or flight response. It is a survival thing. But when we're experiencing doses of it at the frequency that a lot of us are experiencing it, it's really not good for our health. It's just, anything at all.
Yeah.
Disrupted sleep. How many people wake up in the middle of the night and they have to go to the bathroom, or they wake up and it's hard for them to fall back asleep? Those things have also been directly linked to blood sugar dysregulation. I know for me, personally, like, I love having a sweet treat, but if I have it too late and then I go to bed and then I wake up the next morning and I'm like, why did I have to wake up at 2 a.m. to pee? Like, that's not a normal thing for me. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I had like half of a chocolate bar before I went to bed last night. Like, no freaking wonder. It's just important to just be aware. If you're gonna have dessert, try to have it close to the tail end of your dinner so that you have that padding that you need of protein and fat before you introduce yourself to carbs at a higher rate than you typically would.
So you feel like doing like protein and fat before you eat your
Definitely.
carb with like every meal kind
Yeah.
of thing?
Actually,
Just making
yes.
sure. Okay.
Yeah. The way that I just try to be mindful of, because regulating my blood sugar is so important to me, is having vegetables, then having my protein, then having my carbs.
Okay.
That's the way that I always try to eat my plate, my food, my meals, even snacks, just to have that buffer, because it does make a difference.
And what does it do exactly now?
What?
Like if you eat it in that order?
So basically just think of it as like your stomach as a bowl.
Uh-huh.
So if you're consuming your vegetables first, there's not a lot of starchy, glucose charging foods in vegetables.
Oh.
So it's not going to cause a spike, right? You're going to have
Okay.
that padding. And then same with your protein and your fats.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have another layer there to where when you finally do eat your carbs, your stomach has to break down this stuff, and it's already going to be into your bloodstream in a way
Mm-hmm.
that when you finally introduce the carbs, you're not going to have that immediate response of like excitement that your body would
Oh,
traditionally
wow.
have. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Uh-huh.
Okay, moving on. Fatty acids, very important as well. Like I said before, they're a huge part of energy for our heart, and we need them in good qualities though. So
Here we go.
grass-fed butter is very like, I love cooking with grass-fed butter.
Yeah.
Olive oil and avocado oil. Avocado oil has a great smoke point, so like if you're frying stuff in like a pan, avocado oil is great to use for that. And then make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh yeah, I thought that this fact was cool to share in case nobody knew, but our brain is made up of about 60% fat. So it's not just good for your heart, it's also good for your brain. Your brain needs the fat as well.
Can I share a fact off of that?
Yeah, sure.
So your neurons are actually wrapped in a myelin sheath, right? And so when your brain is trying to have those synapses fire together, to have, quick brain, making sure that you're, firing on all cylinders kind of thing. Essentially, if you don't have healthy fats in your diet, that myelin sheath starts to disintegrate, which makes it to where that brain fog kicks in, difficulty like remembering and recalling things. So if you want your neurons to wire together and fire together quicker and be sharp, you have to have that fatty myelin sheath. And so, if you're not eating those healthy fats in your diet, it's disintegrating. And so that's what causes things like early onset dementia and Alzheimer's and all that kind of stuff. So good to know that too.
Yeah. And then I'll give some tips for healthy fats like a little bit later on. Mineral balance. Minerals are actually a micronutrient that our bodies do not produce on their own, so we have to consume them.
Can you say that again?
Micronutrients.
I'm just listening.
That part. Minerals are a micronutrient that our bodies do not produce on our own, so we have to consume them. And they are responsible for helping to keep our bodies in a state of homeostasis. They also keep your body's pH stable. They help aid in hydration and transferring nutrients, helping your muscles relax. Magnesium is great for that. If you're finding it difficult to relax at nighttime especially, or you're having sleep or even anxiety, magnesium glycinate can be especially helpful for that. Magnesium citrate is another popular magnesium, but it's more known for its digestive aid. So if you're not having issues with digestion, I don't recommend taking it because it does work. But yeah, these minerals all work together in tandem with one another to facilitate harmony. Hydration. 55 to 60% of our bodies are made of water, so water is incredibly important, and a lot of us are dehydrated and we don't even know it. But that dehydration can look like fatigue, brain fog, hypertension, which is high blood pressure, also can present with dehydration. This is because our blood viscosity gets thicker when we are dehydrated, so our blood can't move as freely and easily throughout our body. Our blood vessels constrict, so keeping hydrated allows our blood to move freely and for the spaces that it needs to travel through to be properly open for that as well.
Can you speak quickly to like filtered water versus like electrolyte water?
Yes.
Kind of thing?
So that's a point that I had on here later, but we can go to it now.
Okay.
We call water that like reverse osmosis water or just purified water as like dead water, meaning that it's not recharged with the things that our body needs. So when you're drinking that, you're essentially just flushing your body. It doesn't have anything to like hold on to, or it's not charged properly to work with the charges that are within our body, like we have an electrical. Yes.
That's so crazy.
And so to get it charged, you can add things like electrolyte powders. I love Relight, Element. Liquid IV is great for if you've been doing like a difficult workout and you need a little bit of a boost of sugar to get your blood sugar back up.
But not for every day.
Yeah, not for every day. That's honestly like if I've like done a really intense workout and I need a boost of something. My go-to is Element. I love Element. Let's see. So yeah, that's where, or it's just spring water even, but looking for it like bottled at the source is super important if you're gonna do spring water. That will already have minerals that you would
also buy on Amazon. They have like a bottle of trace minerals.
Yes, I use trace
That's like
minerals, too.
what, like $8 or something. It lasts for a long time because you only need like a couple of drops
really
in
does
your
last for a
glass.
long
It lasts for like months.
Yeah.
And it's so very cost effective. If it don't taste good, so don't put a lot.
Yeah, you
in
definitely
a glass
don't
at
need a
once.
lot.
You need like literally 2 or 3 drops, and then squeeze like a lemon in there or something, and you're good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's so crazy to think that like we could be drinking the wrong water.
I actually personally had like a thing where when I got on this like train of realizing, oh my gosh, I need to drink more water in the day. I was drinking so much water, but then I was like mad because I had headaches at the end of the day, and I was like pissed, you know, like I've been drinking all this water. What is going on?
Yeah.
And it's all because it was all, you know, filtered or, you know, like
Wow.
not recharged properly. And so when I started doing that, it helped a lot.
And how much water you drink too, like I can't just like spit out a number, but typically you want to drink 1 ounce of water for every pound of body weight. And I also wanted to say that that's the same rule for protein, like 1 gram of protein for every pound of body weight,
Yeah.
especially as females. We do not typically get enough protein in our diet on a day-to-day basis. That's literally day to day. So like if you weigh 135 pounds, you should be having 135 grams of protein every day. Which is crazy, but it's true.
Collagen in your coffee gives you a boost.
So if you begin to pay attention to these 6 foundations, I truly believe that you'll be surprised at the difference that it can make. That's what's true for me. It's what's true for my story. I mean, aside from how I was feeling and my mental and physical turmoil, my number 1 goal was to pay attention to my blood sugar regulation. And when I did that, and I incorporated therapy, and I incorporated exercise, and I started eating foods that I was learning were good for me, and I was learning how they benefited me and how my body needed them, how I was created to consume them. Truly, I mean, hello, hi, I'm here today. Like everything turned around for me in the best way, and I could honestly get emotional thinking about how far little means come in the last 2 years. And here we are. We're not gonna cry tonight. So yeah, we talked about hydration application. You can also add just a pinch of sea salt to your water if you're not ready to go spend X amount of money on minerals, be it an electrolyte powder or trace mineral drops. Literally just a pinch of sea salt. It has to be sea salt, not your table salt that's just the white sea salt. It can be pink Himalayan, the gray Celtic salt. Just make sure that it's sea salt. And you don't need a lot of that as well. You're not trying to taste salt. Next application for you guys is fatty acids. So this is where healthy fats come in. Olive oil, avocado oil, grass-fed butter, beef tallow, whole fat Greek yogurt, whole fat, all the whole fat, you guys. We're not doing low fat. We're not doing no like whole
2%.
fat. Truly, no 2%. First of all, it doesn't taste good.
No, it doesn't.
Second of all, it's just not good for you. It's not worth even consuming at that point. Oils to avoid that have been common: vegetable oil, canola oil, grapeseed oil, sunflower oil. These oils are actually inflammatory to our bodies instead of good for our bodies. And then a nutrient-dense diet. Committing to learning how to read labels is going to be life-changing. Peanut butter, shocking. The oils that they add to it, the sugar that they add to it, it's just not needed. It's really not needed.
What's your favorite peanut butter brand?
Honestly, I don't have a favorite brand. I just look at the back, and if it just says dry roasted peanuts and maybe sea salt, I'm like, I'm good with this.
Yeah.
Trader Joe's has good creamy peanut butter.
Okay.
Yeah. What else? So does Costco in bulk. And then sweeteners. If something says no added sugar and it looks sweet, you need to flip that baby around and read the ingredient label,
The added
because bizarre. It has aspartame, that's missing an E, sucralose, some kind of artificial sweetener in it, and those are also going to be inflammatory to your body. It's going to mess up your gut. It also can affect your blood sugar, believe it or not. Your body doesn't perceive sugar as sugar, it also perceives it's just sweet. So if anything, you're just going to confuse your body as to what the heck is going on.
Question.
Yes, mother.
What about monk fruit or stevia?
I honestly, I personally, in my practice, don't think that there's an issue with those things. I would rather consume like something more natural like honey or agave, but I mean, I
they're
don't
still
see.
natural,
Yeah, they still come from
Yeah.
natural sources,
Mhm.
but yeah. So I also just want to like, with all of this, say that I'm not here to like try to sell you guys on an organic pasture-raised diet by any means. I don't even do that. There are some things that I won't compromise on, like all of my dairy products. It's just important to me because I know the flip side of it, that they're all grass-fed and organic. I used to have an issue with dairy, consuming dairy, switched to grass-fed truly, and like I don't have an issue with it anymore, which is crazy, but so yeah, I just am trying to stress the importance of being an informed consumer, because that makes all the difference with everything, not just with our food, but with the content that we consume. That also is something that I had to clean up, like music, shows, movies, podcasts, books, like all of that plays a role in our overall health and wellness. And if you think that it doesn't, try to weed out things that might not be the best for you, and you might be surprised. And then sleep, stress, and movement is another part of nutritional therapy that I'm super passionate about, and am really excited and really do enjoy helping other people navigate. So if those are issues for you, bring them, because we're going to solve them for you. In conclusion, the reality is that I cannot share. I mean, we're at 7:15 and I really want you guys to have open space. So I can't give you all of the information that I just really want to in this one session, and there's a lot more. It's just the tip of the iceberg, but most importantly, I want to also stress that every body is different. And I want to just give some general ideas of steps that you can take and tips that you can apply to hopefully start your wellness journey or to build upon your wellness journey. But ultimately, I do suggest meeting with a nutritional therapy practitioner like myself and working together to develop what we call a bio-individual protocol, which is just a fancy way of saying a personalized nutrition and wellness plan. It's specifically tailored to your needs, your goals, your concerns, and your lifestyle, your body, the problems you're facing. So if you are interested in working together, then you can reach out to me personally, sarah@madewellcenter.org. And yeah, I just thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Could you speak to, because I feel like there's like some myths around nutrition, right? Could you speak to like calories in versus calories out, and maybe why it's not so important to focus on just like the number of calories that you're eating kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that also that is bio-individual. Like everything is.
Yeah.
I think that we have been sold a very simplistic way of viewing nutrition, and it's not a true way of viewing nutrition. And so if you're solely focused on the calorie intake, that is going to be detrimental to your health. You're going to miss out on, honestly, the fats that we know now are so important to our brain and our heart. and just keeping our body hormonally a friendly space for hormones, honestly. No, regardless of what age you are, you have hormones. So I think that it's important throughout all stages of life. But yeah, the calorie in, calorie out. If I was working with someone, I would want to know for what purpose are we hung up on.
Yeah. Well, so like I can think of like an example of like someone I know that they want to make sure that they're like not eating so many calories so that they lose weight, right? But then like I, you know, in a past life I did CrossFit, and you know I did the nutrition program with them, and I actually, in order to like achieve the percentage of like body fat loss that I was like trying to go for, I actually had to eat like 600 more calories than I normally eat in a day. And it was like hard. I mean, I was like, felt like I was gorging myself on food, trying to like make sure I was getting the right amount of calories. And it was the right calories, right? Like I wasn't just gonna eat like a bunch of Snicker bars or something to like have the extra calories. But yeah, I just feel like sometimes people think they're gonna like lose weight just like not eating a lot during the day, when the reality is I feel like our bodies like need so much more.
Well, it is like you just said, you're not just gonna like gorge yourself on you know, whatever.
Right.
What you're eating matters more than how many calories are in what you're eating.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers
No,
your
yeah,
question. I
yeah.
feel like it's a little bit layered, but
Sure. Yeah.
it would be hard to justify paying attention to calories in the work that I do, I guess.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Because I've seen people lose weight by eating what they're supposed to be eating.
Right.
In the sense of like calorie wise, but also like eating what they're supposed to be eating.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any other questions?
I do.
Yeah.
So with children, it's
Yeah.
so hard. So when I found out that Ray had this, I totally like stopped buying all these snacks that, you know, all the kid snacks. And, you know, 2 weeks into it, all my kids were like, "Where's the snacks?" And I'm like, it's so, I mean, I'm on Pinterest all the time trying to find like the healthy snacks, and it's so hard. And my pediatrician said, don't buy any pantry snacks, nothing. Just buy fruit and just buy vegetables. I did that for one of my shoppings. I thought my kids would all lose their minds.
Yeah.
It's so hard to like find
Like
good,
kid approved snacks.
especially like packing lunches. Like I'm packing lunches for them every day,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm like, a
And
fruit,
especially
a
after
veggie.
they've been used to eating what they've been eating. Yeah.
Have you had like conversations with them about like
Yes.
the importance of food and like how it's fuel for our body, and it's not just like comfort all the time? Like it can be comfort, but like, you know, having just more, because I think part of it with kids is you do have to have more of those conversations, like
I know.
pretty regularly about like the importance of it, just like fuel.
I think that that's probably an important piece then.
Yeah.
That's probably the piece that I'm like missing.
Because I think even just like us, like growing up, like think about when we were growing up. Like,
Oh, we could eat anything I wanted, like
Right.
you know, my house was like.
but if something changed, like
Yeah.
that wasn't ever talked about. But because you're the adult and you know the knowledge, you just say, well, this is better for you, just eat this. But like telling them and teaching them, because that's what the generations like that is behind me and all of us need.
Right.
Or else it's gonna keep repeating itself.
Right.
Yeah.
There's even like, I mean, I know your kids are like a little bit older, but I have friends who have, you know, worked with their like little kids. They're like 4 and 5 that are just starting to read, and there's like books about like red light, green light, yellow light foods that are kind of like these red light foods, like you should only eat them, you know, like on a special like celebratory occasion or something, you know, like yellow light foods are like, yeah, we want to space these out. Green light foods, you can eat these whenever, and they're dry food.
So our Friday like movie, pizza, candy nights we haven't been doing, and everybody's like, you know. So okay, so having more of the talks,
and like again, maybe like you were saying earlier about with the like order of operations with food even. It's
I was
like
thinking about that. I
just
love
like
that.
even trying to incorporate that of like, okay, well if you're gonna eat this, like
like
whatever
giving them all the
snack.
vegetables
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one I'm like soaking up definitely.
Yeah, I feel like with kids too, it's really important to be mindful of how their brains are perceiving it, because the goal is to just educate them on the
Yeah.
importance of it and not demonize foods.
Right.
Yes,
Because
yes.
they have enough, I
Of
feel
that,
like,
yeah.
yeah, they have enough of the comparison and developing disordered
Mhm.
eating through other people that they see online and their friends and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But really just like being that information, like doc for them, and being like, look, it's not because it's bad, it's just that this is what it does to your body, plain and simple, like there's no way around it,
Mm-hmm.
and these foods are the foods that do this for your body, and just really breaking it down.
Yeah.
It's like getting
Yeah.
as simple as you need to get it,
Mm-hmm.
to where they're kind of like, oh, yeah, I want to feel better, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you could even like have them buy into like helping meal plan with you or something, and like they kind of like suggest their
Oh,
things,
yeah.
but then
Yeah,
you
the kids
balance
love that.
it out. Or
Mhm.
have you heard of
Mhm.
those like Snapple boxes? Have you heard of that?
Mhm.
It's like you get like the little like a tackle box that has like the different division areas, and you can put like some of the beef stick like chomps things and some cheese
Oh
and
yes,
some
I
pretzels
have.
and some
Nadia
whatever.
sends me all those TikToks.
Yes, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So you could do something like that
Okay.
if you wanted.
She sent me that one. Okay, yeah. So those are really great ideas.
Recording in progress.
Weird. Okay. Yeah. Anyways.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Do you, when you work with people, do you do like help with meal planning things
Yeah.
to like create?
Like different
Because
meals
Lord,
and
I need that.
snacks.
Yeah.
I'm just so like not creative when it comes to food, you know.
Yeah, no,
I'm just like,
I do.
this is all I know.
That's
and
the need.
Yeah. Okay.
Think through like grocery lists,
Mhm.
like all of that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I like that.
What ages of individuals do you work with?
So like, I want to say middle school, but I feel like that's also with parents' involvement as well. Like it just has to be.
Mhm.
But yeah, from around that age, with parents up. Because I feel like at that age they're able to make decisions for what they're eating and kind of like learn about that. They can conceptualize it and everything. So yeah, the earlier the better, honestly. Like I'm passionate about it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you're working with people too, you mentioned like movement and sleep and all
Yes,
stress.
we
and
go
everything.
through-
So you like kind of help identify maybe exercising things that people can do.
Yep.
And okay.
So it's lifestyle as well.
Yeah.
as well
Yeah,
as-
nutrition and lifestyle, truly. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
Cool.
it all works together.
Mhm.
It really does.
How's your like anxiety stuff now? Like
I mean, compared to what it was,
Right,
like
right.
literally, like a one. I feel
right,
like.
yeah, okay.
But I mean, I definitely do still have moments of anxiety. I have not had a panic attack since that time, which is huge. I haven't felt overwhelmed by anxiety since that time, and yeah, I mean, I've noticed for me, if my anxiety is peaking, it's because I'm getting closer to that time of the month, honestly.
Right, yeah.
It's very like cyclical for me at this point, but it's not, gosh, it is not at all. Like, I was desperate,
Yeah.
truly. Like, I literally couldn't function. I mean, my mom and sister, my husband, like, can all attest to that. It was honestly crazy. I'm still like, that was just anxiety, but that's the only thing I had to like chalk it up to. It was just a really bad season
Yeah.
of anxiety for whatever reason. Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's not to say that like, because I think it's just like a good place to start. because like what's going on in our bodies obviously affects our mental health, and a lot of people just don't recognize that.
They don't see them connected, but they are connected.
Right.
Yeah.
And like
much.
I think that like even I went through a really bad time of anxiety at one point in my life, and my doctor, I even went to my primary, and the first thing that they said was, "Are you eating?" And at that time I was not. Like I didn't, and if I was, it wasn't good stuff for me. And so like that changed too. And
Well, good on your primary for asking that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, which is which is rare.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think just the fact that like it's like, okay, well
Mm-hmm.
food matters with your mental health, and then once you address that and you have all that down, see how you actually feel as like a healthy human being.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 It's like
Mhm.
we keep like trying to bypass the.
Yeah.
It's like everybody wants the
The
like
Band-Aid.
the Band-Aid,
Quick
magic
fix.
bullet, the quick fix,
Yeah.
and we bypass the like most basic of human needs. Like even when you think of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? It's like the very bottom layer is like food, clothing, shelter, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
water, right? Like that's a very bottom layer. And until you take care of that, you cannot move up the ladder
Yeah.
to these other things like relationships and spirituality and no, forget all that. It's not gonna happen until you're like meeting your most basic of human needs.
Yeah.
You know?
Mhm.
So yeah. Cool. Well, thank you.
Thank
that was
you.
so good.
That was great.